She kept pointing at my dock and yelling, "He's trespassing on HOA property." But the lake she was talking about was literally in the middle of my ranch. I was still standing there with my fishing rod in one hand and my phone buzzing in the other when she finally shouted, "I'm calling 911 right now!" I didn't say a word. I just smiled and reeled the line in slow. Her friends stood behind her, crossing their arms like a little jury. Karen's voice cracked as she barked into her phone. "There's an aggressive man refusing to leave our lake." She made sure I heard every word. I pretended to check the weather on my phone, but was actually watching my office line light up. The 911 call had just landed right at my desk downtown. Karen saw me grin and got louder. "You're in serious trouble, sir. The sheriff's coming to drag you out." I finally said, calm as ever, "You're standing on my land. That water you're calling yours is on my deed. You might want to hang up." Her face turned red. "Don't you dare threaten me. I know the law." What she didn't know was that I'd been working as a 911 supervisor for 15 years. The dispatcher sitting 2 doors from my office had just patched the call to me. I answered it while still staring at her across the lake. "911, what's your emergency?" I said into the phone. Karen froze for a second, hearing my voice echo from my lips and the speaker of her phone at the same time. Her friend started whispering, confused. "You're not the police?" she stammered. "Ma'am," I replied, keeping my tone professional, "you just reported a crime on private property. Can you describe the suspect for me?" Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I added, almost kindly, "You're going to want to be careful about false reports. We record everything." She quickly hung up, her hands shaking. But instead of leaving, she turned to her friends and hissed, "He's bluffing. I'll get the HOA board involved. We'll have him gone by tonight." That was the first sign she wasn't going to back down, and I knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hammering. When I stepped outside with my coffee, 3 men in neon vests were pounding a crooked wooden sign into the dirt right beside my dock. It read in bold red letters, "HOA property, no trespassing. Violators will be fined." I almost laughed. "Fined by who?" I muttered under my breath. Karen was standing a few feet away with her arms folded tight, her phone already out like a weapon. "You've been warned," she said coldly. "The lake is under HOA control now. You have 24 hours to remove your things. Dock, boat, everything." I took a slow sip of coffee. "Karen, that sign is on my soil, and my dock isn't going anywhere." Her eyes narrowed. "We have the right. You're not special just because you work at 911 or whatever." That line told me she had done some digging overnight. Someone must have told her I was the one who picked up her call. Before I could reply, a pickup truck rolled in, spraying dust. It was my neighbor Tom, a quiet Vietnam vet who lived across the pasture. He stepped out, eyeing the sign. "What's going on here?" Karen turned to him like she'd found backup. "Sir, please leave. This area is restricted to HOA residents. He's been illegally using this lake." Tom let out a dry chuckle. "Illegally? Ma'am, my granddad stocked this lake back in the 60s. It's been part of this ranch since before your HOA even existed." Karen's jaw tightened. "You two can play games, but the board will settle this. We're filing a report for illegal structures on community water." That's when I realized she wasn't bluffing. She planned to take it to the county. I stayed calm and said, "Karen, you're walking into trouble you don't see coming." Her face lit with a smug smile. "You'll regret saying that." She left in a hurry, her workers leaving the sign behind. Tom shook his head. "She's got no clue who she's messing with, does she?" I just smiled. "Not a clue. Let her file her reports." What Karen didn't know, and what I hadn't told Tom yet, was that I'd recently renewed the water rights under my ranch. That lake wasn't just a pond. Legally, it was classified as a private reservoir, and the paperwork proving it was sitting in my desk drawer.
That night, I got an email from the HOA board demanding I vacate the premises surrounding the lake within 48 hours or face legal action. I replied with a single line, "You might want to check whose premises you're talking about." I hit send, sat back, and waited for the fireworks to begin.
2 days later, I was out mending a fence line when I saw a convoy of shiny SUVs rolling down the dirt road toward the lake. At the front was Karen's white Lexus, crawling like a parade float. The others were board members I'd only seen once before. 3 men in polo shirts and sunglasses, 1 woman with a clipboard and a smug smile. Karen stepped out first, adjusting her wide-brimmed hat like she was stepping onto a movie set. "You've ignored a legal notice," she said, her voice loud enough for the entire ranch to hear. I leaned on the fence post. "That email wasn't legal, and neither is this little field trip." One of the men waved a folded paper in the air. "We have an order to inspect the lake. You're required to comply." I walked over slowly, wiping my hands on my jeans. "You mean that piece of paper you printed off your HOA office computer? Show me a county seal on it." He hesitated for a second, long enough to tell me everything I needed to know. Karen jumped in, her voice shrill. "We don't need a county seal. The board voted unanimously to reclaim this lake for the community." I grinned. "A board vote doesn't change the land deed." Her smile turned icy. "We'll see what the sheriff says about that." She dialed her phone right there, eyes locked on me like she was about to deliver the final blow. "Sheriff's Department, how can I help you?" I heard the dispatcher answer through the speakerphone. Karen put on her sweetest tone. "Yes, I need an officer sent out. There's a man refusing to vacate our community lake. He's being hostile." I waited, arms crossed. The dispatcher asked for the address, and when Karen rattled it off, there was a pause on the line. Then the dispatcher asked, "Is this regarding Mr. Carter's property?" Karen blinked. "Who?" The dispatcher's voice shifted to a formal tone. "Ma'am, that's private ranch land. Are you reporting a trespasser or admitting to trespassing yourself?" Karen's face went pale. The board members shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check their phones. She stammered, No, just send someone out, please." The dispatcher calmly replied, "An officer will respond, but I advise you to remain off private property until they arrive." Karen hung up, glaring at me as if I'd somehow scripted the whole exchange. An hour later, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up. The deputy stepped out, recognized me, and tipped his hat. "Morning, Carter. Everything okay?" Karen pounded before I could speak. "He is illegally blocking access to community water!" The deputy looked from her to the lake, then back at me. "Ma'am, this reservoir is listed under Mr. Carter's ranch in county records. You're on his land." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. The clipboard lady stepped forward. "We'll be taking this to court. We have proof the lake's always been for the HOA." The deputy shrugged. "You're welcome to file, but until then, you can't post signs or harass the owner." Karen's face turned red. She snatched the wooden sign from the ground, threw it into her Lexus, and sped off without a word. The board followed her like a defeated parade. Tom, who'd been watching from his porch, called out with a grin, "Think she's learned her lesson?" I shook my head. "Not even close. She's about to make her biggest mistake yet."
3 nights later, just after midnight, my security camera alert pinged on my phone. I checked the feed and saw 2 flashlights moving along the edge of the dock. I slipped on my jacket and grabbed the old Winchester I kept by the door. Not loaded, just for show. When I stepped outside, the air was cool, and the moon lit the lake silver. "Who's out there?" I called. The lights froze. Then Karen's voice floated back, sharp and defensive. "We're just taking measurements. HOA business. You can't threaten us." I walked closer, keeping my tone even. "You're trespassing at midnight. That's not business." Her flashlight wobbled as she pointed it at me. "We are documenting illegal structures. This dock was built without HOA approval. We're gathering evidence for our case." I almost laughed. You're building a case against my own dock on my own lake at midnight? You realize this is all on camera, right? The man beside her, one of the board members, muttered, "Let's just go." But Karen wasn't backing down. You think you're clever because you've got your little sheriff friends? Well, we'll prove this reservoir belongs to the community, and when we do, you'll be the one in court for trespassing. I stayed calm. Good luck proving that when I've got every deed since 1954. For a moment, she looked shaken. Then she said, "Paperwork can be forged. We have witnesses who'll testify the lake was always open to residents. That's all we need." They turned and left, crunching across the gravel. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office with a folder under my arm. Inside were copies of every deed transfer, water rights certificate, even the tax maps showing the lake outlined squarely inside my ranch boundary. The clerk, a middle-aged woman who'd known my family for years, leafed through the papers and nodded. "You're solid. They don't have a case unless they can rewrite history." I asked, "Think they'll try?" She chuckled. "With that, Karen, she'll try." I left the office feeling more confident, but as I pulled up to the ranch gate, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A bright orange notice was nailed to my fence post. Immediate eviction. Unauthorized use of HOA property. Failure to comply will result in forced removal. There was no county seal, just the HOA logo stamped at the bottom. Tom drove up behind me, leaned out his truck window, and whistled. They're really asking for it now. I ripped the notice down and crumpled it in my hand. They just crossed the line from annoying to illegal. Tom grinned. "You gonna let 'em hang themselves?" I smiled back, though I felt the heat rising in my chest. "Oh, I'm gonna give them all the rope they need." That night, I set up 2 more cameras around the dock and 1 near the ranch gate. Something told me Karen's next move was coming soon, and it wasn't going to be pretty. I woke up to the sound of shouting near the gate. By the time I got outside, 2 tow trucks were parked on the dirt road, engines rumbling, their drivers standing awkwardly, while Karen barked orders at them like she was a general. "Hook it up to the dock first," she snapped, waving her arm toward the lake. "Then we'll deal with the boat." I strode down the hill, my dog Duke trotting beside me, growling low. "You've officially lost your mind," I called out. Karen spun around. "You ignored an eviction notice. We warned you. We're removing unauthorized structures today, by force if we have to." The tow truck drivers exchanged nervous looks. One of them scratched his neck. "Ma'am, we don't usually tow docks. And is this even legal?" "It's HOA jurisdiction," Karen barked. "You'll get paid double." I stopped a few feet away, keeping my voice calm but firm. "You're trespassing again, and now you're trying to destroy private property. If you touch that dock, you'll regret it." Karen smirked. "Go ahead. Call the sheriff again. Let's see whose side he takes when we tell him you've been stealing community water." I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the security app. A live feed popped up, showing Karen, the trucks, and everything they'd already said. I held it up for her to see. "Already recording. You're about to make my case airtight." Her smirk faltered for a second, then she snapped at the drivers. "Ignore him! Start now!" Before they could move, a familiar rumble approached from behind, the county sheriff's cruiser pulling up fast. The deputy stepped out, hands on his belt. "What's going on here?" Karen jumped into her act immediately. "Officer, he's refusing to comply with an eviction notice. We're here under HOA orders to reclaim community property." The deputy eyed her, then looked at the dock, then at me. "Man, I told you last week this is private land. That notice isn't worth the paper it's printed on." Karen's voice went high and sharp. "We'll sue. We have proof the lake belongs to the HOA." The deputy sighed. "You're free to sue, but right now you're committing criminal trespass and attempting to damage private property. Pack up and go before I have to write you up." Karen's face turned crimson. She glared at me like she wanted to burn a hole through me. "This isn't over," she spat.
The tow trucks backed out slowly, the drivers shaking their heads. Tom appeared from his porch with a thermos in his hand, chuckling, "Guess she figured she could just drag the lake away, too." I couldn't help but laugh. "She's running out of tricks." Tom leaned on the fence. "You think so? She's the type who gets dangerous when she's desperate." I looked at the cameras by the dock and then back at the empty road where her Lexus had disappeared. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think she's just getting desperate enough."
The next morning felt too quiet. No trucks, no shouting, just the sound of ducks on the water. I almost believed Karen had given up. Around noon, I was on the porch fixing a reel when I noticed a black sedan pull up by the gate. Two men in suits stepped out, carrying briefcases. They didn't look like county officials or delivery guys. One of them called out, "Mr. Carter, we're here to serve you a court summons on behalf of the Lakeside HOA." I set the reel aside and walked down the steps slowly. "A summons for what exactly?" He flipped a few papers. "Unlawful seizure of community water and unauthorized construction on public land." I laughed under my breath. Public land, that's rich. He handed me the packet anyway. "You'll need to appear in court next Thursday." I thanked them politely, took the papers, and watched as the sedan disappeared down the road. Tom came over a few minutes later after seeing the whole exchange from his porch. "So, they're really going for the courtroom showdown," he said, peering at the packet. "They think they can win by paperwork. Guess it's time I show them my paperwork." That evening, I sat at my desk, spreading out my own files, decades of deeds, water rights, aerial photos, tax records. I put them in order like pieces on a chessboard. While I worked, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Karen's voice came through, low and triumphant. "Enjoy your lake while you can. By next week, it'll be ours again. And don't think your sheriff buddy can save you in court." I didn't respond. I just let the silence stretch until she finally hung up. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that she had another move coming, so I walked down to the dock to check the cameras one more time. As I was heading back up the path, Duke started barking at the far side of the lake. I aimed my flashlight across the water and saw a shape moving near the reeds, someone crouching, trying to stay hidden. "Who's out there?" I shouted. The figure bolted into the trees before I could get a good look. The next morning, I reviewed the security footage. The grainy video showed someone kneeling by the lake's edge around midnight, using what looked like a long metal pole to prod the water near the dam outlet. Tom came over as I was replaying it. "What's she up to now, checking water levels?" I zoomed in on the still frame. The person was wearing a baseball cap and hoodie, face hidden, but the posture looked familiar. She's trying to mess with the water flow. If she can drain the lake even a few feet, she'll claim it's a man-made pond maintained by the community. Tom whistled. "That's dirty." I nodded, staring at the paused image. "That's desperation. She knows she can't beat me with deeds, so she's trying to change the lake itself before the court date." I knew then that the real fight hadn't even started yet.
The night before the hearing, a storm rolled in. Rain pounded the roof and thunder rattled the windows. I sat by the window, watching the lake churn under flashes of lightning. Around midnight, Duke started barking again, this time facing the dock. I grabbed my flashlight and coat, stepped into the downpour, and sloshed down the muddy path. When I reached the dock, I saw fresh footprints in the soaked soil, 2 sets, small and hurried, heading toward the reeds. My stomach sank. I aimed the flashlight toward the far bank. A faint beam of light flickered between the trees, like someone trying to stay low. "Hey, whoever's out there, step away from the water!" I yelled over the storm. The light went out instantly. I sprinted back up to the porch and checked the camera feed from my phone. One camera caught a blurry figure kneeling near the dam again, this time fiddling with something metallic at the outflow gate. I didn't waste another second. I called the sheriff's office. "Evening, Carter. What's going on?" the deputy asked, sounding tired. "Got someone tampering with my dam outlet right now. I've got footage," I said. "We'll send a unit," he replied. By the time the cruiser arrived, the intruders were gone, but the deputy found fresh pry marks on the gate lever.
He shook his head. Someone's trying to lower the lake level. That's vandalism and interference with a registered reservoir. I'll file the report tonight. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the lake's water line was down by nearly 6 inches. Tom walked over, looking grim. She's really going all in. Think she'll show up in court after this? Oh, she'll show up, I said, staring at the water line. But she won't be ready for what I'm bringing. We drove into town for the hearing later that afternoon. The small courthouse was already buzzing with locals who'd heard about the feud. Karen sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, looking smug as ever. As soon as the judge entered, Karen's lawyer started in, painting me as a greedy landowner who seized a lake that was meant for the community. When it was my turn, I stood up with my folder and spread the documents on the table. Every deed from the 1950s, water rights certificates, maps with the lake clearly outlined inside my boundaries. Your Honor, this lake has been on my family's land for over 60 years. The HOA has no jurisdiction here. And last night, someone tampered with the dam gate to alter the water line. We have security footage of that as well. The judge raised an eyebrow and asked to see the video. We played the clip of the hooded figure by the dam. Karen shifted in her seat, glancing nervously at her lawyer. The judge looked over his glasses at her. Do you have any explanation for this? Karen opened her mouth but didn't answer. That's when the deputy from the sheriff's department stepped forward with his report. We found tool marks consistent with an attempt to lower the reservoir. This is under investigation as criminal damage to private property. The courtroom went silent except for the quiet hum of the projector. Karen's lawyer cleared his throat and asked for a recess, but the judge shook his head. There's no basis for this claim. The lake is clearly on Mr. Carter's land, and this board's actions are bordering on harassment. Case dismissed. Karen's face went white, her hands gripping the edge of the table. She wasn't used to losing, especially not in public. As I packed up my papers, she muttered under her breath, just loud enough for me to hear, "You think you've won. This isn't the end." I looked her straight in the eye and said quietly, "For you, it should be." But deep down, I knew she wasn't done.
Karen didn't come near the lake for a few days after court, but that silence felt heavier than her shouting ever did. Tom said she was probably licking her wounds. I wasn't so sure. Late Friday afternoon, as I was cleaning the boat, I heard an engine rumble up the road. A moving truck rolled to a stop near the gate, followed by Karen's Lexus. She got out wearing sunglasses and that same wide-brimmed hat, but this time, she wasn't alone. A younger man in a crisp suit stepped out of the truck holding a clipboard. He looked around the property like he already owned it. Karen waved at me with a smirk. "Afternoon, neighbor. Meet Dylan, our new HOA acquisitions manager." I set down the brush and walked up the hill toward the fence. "Acquisitions manager? For what? You don't own a thing here." Dylan smiled politely, but his words were sharp. "Actually, Mr. Carter, the HOA board has decided to offer you a buyout of the lake and surrounding shoreline. We are prepared to make a generous offer, well above market value. All we need is your signature." Karen added sweetly, "You might as well take the money now. Once we rezone the area, the county will side with us anyway." I almost laughed. "You came all the way out here to try and buy something you just lost in court?" Dylan's smile didn't change. Court decisions can be appealed. Money saves everyone the headache. I leaned on the fence and looked right at Karen. "You didn't bring a lawyer this time. You brought a salesman." Karen's smile faltered for just a second. "Think about it," she said. "No more drama, no more conflict, just cash in your pocket and peace of mind." I shook my head. "The lake's not for sale. Not now, not ever. You can turn that truck around." Karen's voice hardened. "You're making a mistake. Offers like this don't come twice." I said nothing, just turned back toward the boat. Dylan sighed and tucked the clipboard under his arm. "We'll be in touch." They left without another word, but I noticed Karen glaring at the cameras as they drove away. That night, as the sun went down, a strange silence settled over the lake again. No frogs croaking, no ducks splashing, just still water reflecting the sky. I went inside, trying to shake off the unease, but around midnight, Duke started pacing and whining at the door. I checked the live feed on my phone. At first, everything looked normal, until a faint ripple appeared near the dam outlet. Then another. I zoomed in, expecting to see an animal, but instead there was a dark shape floating just under the surface. Long, thin, and metallic. Tom's words from weeks ago echoed in my mind. She's the type who gets dangerous when she's desperate. Whatever Karen was planning next, it wasn't another lawsuit or a buyout. It was something far worse, and it was already in the water.